The mimosas were flowing at the country club brunch, their golden bubbles catching the morning sun as they danced in the crystal flutes. Sarah's laugh rang through the polished hall, high-pitched and flawless, as Dad slid the keyring across the white linen tablecloth. 3 keys, ocean view beach house, 3 bedrooms, private access, and a view worth more than most could dream of. Congratulations, sweetheart, Mom said, dabbing at her eyes. You've worked so hard for your MBA. You deserve this. Sarah lifted the keys like they were solid gold. I can't believe it. The beach house, all mine. Well, Dad added, technically, it's still in the family trust. But you'll have full use, exclusive occupancy rights. Everyone cheered, uncles, aunts, cousins, even Chris raising his coffee cup in mock salute. And I lifted my water glass politely, taking a small sip, keeping quiet. Aunt Diane, Mom prompted. What about you, Natalie? The room fell silent. I smiled faintly, knowing exactly how this would land. 7 years ago, my own graduation had been far less glamorous: a modest dinner, Olive Garden, a $500 card. No beach house, no cheers, just polite congratulations. Meanwhile, Sarah, funded entirely by Mom and Dad, had earned her MBA in style and was now handed a multi-million-dollar property. Different circumstances, Dad said quickly, like that settled everything. Strategic asset, Mom added. She'll need it for networking, entertaining clients. Sarah was already scrolling Pinterest, her enthusiasm tangible. Maybe renovate the deck, upgrade furniture. I want to host a client dinner next month. I glanced at my phone, subtle but deliberate. 11:47 a.m. 13 minutes until everything changed. All morning my notifications had been buzzing. Attorney, financial advisor, trust administrator. Years of careful planning were about to pay off. The family had no idea what was coming. Sarah, noticing my distraction, arched an eyebrow. You look distracted. Hard seeing me get something so nice. I gave her a small smile. Not at all. Enjoy it. You'll understand soon enough. Mom was already talking about a moving party next Saturday. Sarah, ever the planner, had already hired professional movers. Chris nudged me. You're coming, right? Wouldn't miss it, I said, though I had other plans. Dad's phone rang. He stepped out to the terrace, furrowed brow, pacing. I followed the vibration in my pocket. Another text from my attorney. Trust activation complete. All properties under your control. The room seemed to tilt. Dad returned, pale. Natalie, we need to talk. Privately. We stepped aside. He pulled up his phone, showing the email from the trust administrator. This says, you're now the sole controller of the Coastal Properties Trust. That can't be right. I nodded. Calm. It's correct. The trust holds the beach house, mountain cabin, downtown properties, worth at least $15 million. How? Dad whispered. You didn't even know the conditions. I did, I said, remembering Grandma's letters. One at 18, another at 25, the final one at 30, carefully guiding me to this moment. The trust activates when the eldest grandchild turns 30. I turned 30 last month. His hands trembled. The beach house, my promise to Sarah. You promised her something you didn't have the authority to promise, I replied, steady. Grandma and Grandpa built this to prevent impulsive gifting, to preserve the legacy. Today I enforced their wishes. The silence was deafening. Around us, family eyes widened, whispers growing. Sarah laughed, forced. That's ridiculous. The house is family property. It's always been family property, I corrected. Managed under trust until conditions were met. Conditions were met today. Mom scrolled on her phone, shock evident. Now I see the original documents. How did we never read these? Dad handled finances, Mom, I said. The trust protects against impulsive promises. Rules are clear: fair management, fair use, long-term preservation. Sarah slammed her hand on the table. You can't do this. Dad promised me. Dad promised without authority, I said. I'm following the rules, not whims. The beach house generates income, $8,000 per month in peak season, $5,000 off-season. Commercial properties $40,000 monthly. Total trust value, $18 million. Managed properly, this grows for generations. Chris leaned forward, impressed. So, the properties are still available for family? Yes. Book through the property manager. Pay the standard rate. Rules enforced. Everyone treated fairly. Dad's face shifted from disbelief to pale comprehension. This will tear the family apart. No, Dad. Your unchecked promises would have torn it apart. I'm merely enforcing the system your parents set in place. Aunt Diane smiled faintly. They were very specific. The properties must be protected, not squandered. Sarah scoffed, venom in her voice. You're sitting on your throne of properties while the rest of us beg for scraps. I met her glare evenly. I maintain and protect them. Rules apply to everyone. That's the responsibility I inherited. Not power responsibility. Grandma trusted me to enforce it. Mom's voice softened. You could have told us sooner. I emailed Dad 3 months ago. He ignored it. This isn't about punishing Sarah. It's about doing what's right. Sarah stormed out, Mom following. Chris asked about the mountain cabin. Book follow rules, I replied. Simple. Fair. Consistent. Dad shook his head. Grandma would be ashamed. I smiled, remembering her words. Your father will try to make you feel bad. Stand firm. You're doing the right thing. I had. The brunch ended, my calm contrasted with their chaos. I drove back to my modest townhouse satisfied. Family members would adapt or resist, but the legacy was secure, the trust intact, and Grandma's intentions honored. The moment I stepped back to the table, the atmosphere had shifted. Whispers had grown louder, sharp glances passing between family members like tiny electric shocks. Sarah's forced laughter had dissolved into a cold, incredulous stare. Dad cleared his throat, voice shaky. Natalie, I need an explanation. Privately. I think the whole family deserves to hear it, I said calmly, sliding my phone and the trust documents across the table. The papers gleamed under the morning light, official, binding, indisputable. Sarah's voice cracked. What is this? She picked up a document, hands trembling. This says I don't have the beach house? It says, I replied evenly, that the Coastal Properties Trust has activated and I am now the sole trustee and primary beneficiary. All properties, all assets under my management. A sharp gasp cut through the room. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Chris leaned forward, eyes wide. Wait. You control all of it? Yes, I said. The beach house, the mountain cabin, 6 commercial properties downtown. Full control. The trust was activated today according to the conditions laid out by Grandma and Grandpa. Dad's face went pale. Why didn't you say anything before? I did, I said. 3 months ago. I emailed you with notice of the activation timeline and suggested reviewing the documents before making any promises. You didn't respond. This isn't sudden, Dad, it's long planned and fully legal. Sarah slammed her hand on the table, the crystal clinking sharply. This is insane. I graduated today. You can't just take my gift like this. The gift never existed in your legal control, I said. You were promised something without authority. The trust always specified the eldest grandchild would take control at 30. That condition was met today. Mom's face paled further as she scrolled through the trust documents on her phone. I never realized this, she murmured. Because Dad managed the finances without reading the details, I said softly but firmly. This trust prevents impulsive gifting and ensures the family legacy is preserved. That's why I now manage it. Chris, finally speaking, asked cautiously. So, can we still use the properties? Yes, I said. Through the property manager. Standard family rate. Booking rules enforced. Fair to everyone, consistent, transparent. The assets are not for personal whims, they are investments, maintained for long-term family benefit. Dad's voice shook. This is going to tear the family apart. No, Dad, I said. Your unchecked promises would have torn it apart. I am enforcing rules already in place. It's fairness, not favoritism. Aunt Diane, ever calm, interjected. Your grandparents set these rules for a reason. They knew family dynamics would make this difficult. They wanted responsible management, not entitlement. Sarah's face turned red. You're sitting on a throne while the rest of us, what? Beg for scraps. Not scraps, I said. Rules, structure, responsibility. The properties will continue generating income. Beach house $8,000 per month peak season, $5,000 off season. Commercial properties $40,000 per month. Total trust value, $18 million. Properly maintained and invested, the legacy grows for generations. That's my job. Sarah slammed the chair back and stormed off, her heels echoing sharply. Mom followed her silently. The room fell quiet, tension thick in the air. Chris asked, quieter now. The mountain cabin? Yes, I said. Book through the property manager. Pay the standard rate. Rules enforced same as before. Dad sat down, slumped, finally understanding. Grandma would be disappointed, he muttered. She trusted me to enforce the rules, I said, holding up her final letter. Even if it causes family friction. She knew some would resist. But the legacy must be protected. I'm standing firm. Aunt Diane nodded approvingly. She's right. The properties are safe, secure, and being properly managed. Chris whistled softly. $43,000 management fee for $18 million in assets modest considering. It's never been about the fee, I said. It's about protecting what Grandma and Grandpa built, ensuring it benefits future generations, not just satisfying short-term desires. Dad finally whispered, voice small. I see now. You're not punishing anyone. You're preserving their intentions. I smiled faintly, satisfied. Exactly. It's about responsibility, not revenge. About rules, not impulses. Sarah may not forgive, but the trust, the legacy, the family inheritance is secure. The brunch ended in uneasy silence. Family members left, whispers trailing behind them. I felt a subtle sense of power, tempered by duty. This wasn't about winning, it was about honoring a legacy they had entrusted to me long ago. As I gathered my things, Chris leaned close. So, are you serious? The beach house is off limits unless we follow the rules. Yes, I said, locking eyes. Fair, consistent, and accountable. That's the only way the legacy survives. And as I drove back to my small townhouse, I knew this was the moment the family realized who was truly in control, not because of favoritism, not because of flashy gifts, but because of preparation, discipline, and foresight. The house was quiet after the brunch drama, the echoes of Sarah's heels still ringing faintly in my mind. I returned to my townhouse, the city stretching below in golden light, thinking about the trust, the legacy, and the storm I just navigated. This wasn't about punishment, it was about honor, structure, and foresight. That evening, Dad called. His voice, usually commanding, was subdued, almost hesitant. Natalie, I can't argue with your attorney. The trust is ironclad. I know, I said. And Sarah, she'll be upset, yes. But she'll adapt. So will everyone else.